Good morning, America. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. As I have my Ryder Cup attire on, I have my USA cufflinks. I have a red, white, and blue getup, the American flag, of course, because our team is going all the way in the 45th edition from Farmingdale, New York. Now, Bethpage Black, a very difficult golf course, and one that they actually have a warning sign that it's only meant for very skilled golfers. And we saw the excitement this morning, as I'm sure you're tuning in, to Bryson DeChambeau nearly driving the green on the first hole. Well, President Trump loves some golf himself, as many of you know. So he will be heading to the Empire State to take in the second 4-ball this afternoon. So he should be getting off from the wonderful Joint Base Andrews relatively soon aboard Air Force One. We'll take you there live when that does happen. In the meantime, lots of news this week, meeting with President Erdogan of Turkey for discussion on more military sales to strengthen that alliance in a strategic area where Turkey does rest, as it was going back into biblical times, Ephesus and Constantinople. Lots of history throughout that country, and the corner or intersection of where Europe meets Asia. So as we look towards what's happening at the UN General Assembly, there's anticipation as well for a rather poignant speech from Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel. We'll keep you all abreast of that as you join us today on this Friday, September 26th. Thank you for being with us here on the right side of history. And we know that sports and the Oval Office have really interjected, especially post-World War II, and especially in the world, in the game of golf. This Ryder Cup competition going back nearly a century now of competition between the United States and the European teams. And Rory McIlroy having some fun there as well. Also speaking to the greatness of America. If you saw during their press conference rounds with the golfers, stating that if you come here and have the immense privilege, as I did, and I'm very grateful for coming to America and work hard, all these dreams come true. You can literally become anything you'd like to be. Now, of course, there's the exception of certain physical attributes, but I would have to second Rory McIlroy in that, the esteemed champion golfer from Northern Ireland who now makes his home in the free Sunshine State of Florida. So we look forward to that competition and President Trump as he will be embarking to New York to catch the 45th edition of this fine championship. And lots that he put out on Truth Social. If you caught overnight, a couple of somewhat disturbing things when it comes to free speech. So we know of the Jimmy Kimmel situation. That was a market decision that has been thrown around on the left as if it was something other than that. But Nick Fuentes and Alex Jones taken off of YouTube completely last night. We'll see if they have been reinstated, but regardless of so-called hate speech, they should have that free speech. Are we back to where we're being doxxed and canceled as a culture back during 2020 and 2021 as President Trump was removed from then Twitter and then Facebook? So something to closely watch. Nick Fuentes, not much of a fan of mine personally, and likewise. But even with that said, people should have the right to say what they think and believe, because after all, this is America, and big tech censorship is something that should not be happening in the United States. So again, history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it does rhyme, dating back to roughly 4 to 5 years ago. President Trump making clear what he is thinking via Truth Social, as he does on nearly a daily basis, talking about James Comey and the fact that he's been indicted on 2 counts, accused of lying to Congress. And whether you like corrupt James Comey or not, I can't imagine too many people liking him, as the president put it. He lied. It is not a complex lie. It's very simple, but an important one. There is no way he can explain his way out of it. He is a dirty cop and always has been. but he was just assigned a crooked Joe Biden appointed judge. So he's off to a very good start. Nevertheless, words are words, and he wasn't hedging or in dispute. He was very positive, and there was no doubt in his mind about what he said or meant by saying it. He left himself zero margin of error on a big and important answer to a question. Now, he just got unexpectedly caught. James Dirty Cop Comey, that's the new nickname for him, was a destroyer of lives. He knew exactly what he was saying, and it was a very serious and far-reaching lie for which a very big price must be paid. Signed by President Donald J. Trump. And it's really unprecedented in so many ways. The first director of the FBI to be charged with the crime and indicted, and for lying to Congress specifically. So we'll see as that goes on. But promises made, promises kept by this Department of Justice and by this FBI working on behalf of the American people. And I think that this is just the very surface layer of what's to come in the next weeks, months, and even years in regards to justice. The investigators are now becoming the investigated. They peddled a Russia hoax. There was the Steele dossier. Hillary Clinton's campaign spied on the Trump campaign. There's no question about that as we see Marine One approaching Joint Base Andrews. And assuming that President Trump is aboard and prepared to take off en route to Farmingdale, New York for the Ryder Cup. So we look forward to that exquisite competition and for what the president might be able to do today in joining Team USA as they compete against Team Europe. And if you have not been to a Ryder Cup or watched a Ryder Cup, it's rather fun because of the excitement around it. Usually golf is very quiet and the small claps and almost whispers of such. But it's fun to get the European and U.S. squads together because it's almost as if a soccer match comes together, especially for the European side. There's a lot of cheers and jeers and boos and lots of fun to watch. So we hope you enjoy that this weekend with family and friends in this now autumn season in the United States of America. And it looks like he'll be taking the smaller aircraft, which is probably about a 90-minute flight from Joint Base Andrews to Farmingdale Municipal Airport. And we could take it there live if we'd like to for the sights and sounds as Marine One has touched down at Joint Base Andrews. looks like President Trump has his golf shoes on and ready to go. He might be a sub. I'm just kidding, but we know that he is a scratch golfer himself. And Kai Trump right behind him, his lovely granddaughter, who is on scholarship at the University of Miami for golf. So getting those Snapchat and Instagram stories in. Also nice to have a social media consult from your granddaughter as you aboard Air Force One. And I think that might have been Ivanka as well. Just getting from the distance in the pool shot there. So a family affair today as President Trump heads to the 45th edition of the Ryder Cup in Farmingdale, New York, being played at Bethpage Black, one of the finest golf courses in all of the country. And speaking of a family affair, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, your go-to for fall flu season prep, whether you're traveling, whether it's simply the son or daughter at home who wakes up with the sniffles after coming home from school with the fever, the cough, and everything that can have. Prepare your medicine cabinet before flu season. Code RSBN10. It's 10% off now. Scan the QR code right there for ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, Tamiflu, all of the essentials in order to keep your family safe this time of year. Over 200 essential medications, in fact, at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Monetary gold, the wealth, preservation, and securities that matter most to you. Grab your presidential gold guide. It's complimentary. And call now. Call today. Don't delay. Find out how you can eliminate your IRA permanently and all of those fees for life. It's 888-617-7994, 888-617-7994, rsbnforthegold.com. That's rsbnforthegold.com, and we hope that the United States brings home the gold in the Ryder Cup. But what does gold and silver, precious commodities, mean for you in 2025? Well, let's talk to Robert Kiyosaki. He's a gentleman, a friend of President Trump, a great investor, rich dad, poor dad, an author, and someone who consults on this very matter. 2 banks have failed in 2025, and for over 5,000 years of human history, gold and silver have solved countless problems when it comes to being able to trade and purchase whatever the economy that you are in. Paper money solely is not a good source of protecting your wealth anymore, especially with $37 trillion of debt. So again, call today. Do not delay. 888-617-7994, RSBN for thegold.com. Call immediately to discover how you can eliminate those IRA fees with your complimentary presidential gold guide. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history, monetary gold, as we cover President Trump's trip to the Ryder Cup and a press gaggle he had earlier today at the White House. We'll take you there as well for any questions that may have come up regarding a week's worth of really full of news from YouTube censorship just yesterday to 2 indictments against the former FBI director, James Comey, to this great competition that we will see in the Empire State of New York. Also, President Trump focused on redoing all of the Oval Office, and you've seen the Rose Garden now, the Rose Garden Club, where he has these dinners. Also, the Palm Room, which we will show you at some point today, just off of the West Wing. He has a builder's touch to everything, and he is laying his legacy right there in brick and mortar and also with wonderful marble. That's right outside of the West Wing now. So that's pretty exquisite. Thank you for putting that up, Mr. Producer. That is a fantastic room right off of the West Wing. So President Trump really bringing back that elegance, decor, and it's hard to believe that the White House, as grand as it is, you would have dinners on the South Lawn or even evenings in the Rose Garden, and people would be walking through mud in that process. Well, that's not very nice. So President Trump putting his own personal touch on this, including finalizing that presidential ballroom. If you've been to Mar-a-Lago and seen that ballroom, this will be even grander than that. And it's hard to imagine something even nicer than that ballroom in South Florida. But President Trump putting his touch on the White House, including the 2 huge flagpoles that went up earlier this year. So every president gets their moment to put something in the White House or leave that legacy, whether it be from a playground to the golf links and a putting hole to a bowling alley. They all, or the Truman balcony, for example, they all get to put their own personal touch on this. And this president leaving a massive positive mark at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue as he gets ready to take off. It is underway. Air Force One is the call sign now that he's aboard with family and staff en route to Farmingdale, New York for the 45th edition of the Ryder Cup. And the first ball tee times, they're already off and running. Bryson DeChambeau almost driving the green on the first hole to the cheers and celebrations of both United States and European fans. Roughly at 7:11, so 11 minutes after the hour, after the 7 o'clock hour on the East Coast, an early tee time. They play 36 holes today, break it up into two different formats. That then leads to teams on Saturday and then singles on Sunday to close out the tournament. So it's fun to have team golf because you just don't see that as a regular format for most of the tournaments. But to have both of the largest economies in the world tee it up literally for competition, always refreshing to share in our Western values and what seems to be a new revival-based civilization fighting back for what we truly believe in, led by this great individual, Donald John Trump. And as the president takes off there from Joint Base Andrews, we will keep that there live, watching all that as we go through some of his other truths from just yesterday. He has a 57% cut number one approval rating for the President of the United States, according to Rasmussen. Some other polling done there as well. A rather large approval rating, and I believe the largest he's had between both 10 years and his time as the 45th president and now as the 47th president of the United States. And we know that he is moving swiftly with cut number two as the peace president, solving 7 different wars and conflicts within a period of time of 7 months. So you have Cambodia and Thailand to Rwanda and the Congo. Also, Pakistan, India, Israel, Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, of course, Israel and Iran. And now the main focus truly being Russia and Ukraine and the difficulties that that has presented, not only for the United States, for those who are living here of Russian and Ukrainian descent, but also for those in Europe and Asia, to deal with millions being killed needlessly simply because the last administration failed to draw the line in the sand. We'll toss there live now to Joint Base Andrews for the takeoff of Air Force One. Wheels up. It's the weekend. President Trump and family and staff en route to the Ryder Cup. Thank you to our sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, where you can make the bets and trades on this Ryder Cup. Kalshi.com/RSBN. Who will win the Nobel Peace Prize? I think that's Donald Trump, very clear from solving 7 wars in 7 months. Will Zelensky meet with Putin before January? Will it be bilateral or trilateral between the Ukrainian and Russian leaders and President Trump, who both leaders said they want him present there to be at those meetings, whether it be in Moscow or in Kiev. Scan the QR code now, kalshi.com/RSBN. There's also angelpaste.com, a miracle you can bring right on the golf course. Vitamin B infused, non-GMO, no chemicals. It is something I've used here on the network. I continue to use this for skincare. There's also the miracle cream that is the vitamin C infused orange option. Also non-GMO, no chemicals. There's a facial spray. It's really wonderful to have a Christian-based company that puts good things and healthy things into their products. And you don't have to worry about the 30-plus ingredients and the different dyes and all the poisons that sometimes get into our food and our products. Not with angelpaste.com. They are truly the best out there in Spring, Texas. They're right off the Gulf of America. Experience the miracle today that is angelpaste.com. And I believe we have the press gaggle ready from the White House that we could take to. We'll send it on there. President Trump, right before getting aboard Marine One and Air Force One.
So I'm going to go for a little while to represent the United States at the Ryder Cup, which is very exciting. And we'll be watching that. This is Kai, by the way, in case you didn't know how he is. And we'll be watching a little golf. I think we have maybe a deal on Gaza, very close to a deal on Gaza. How are you? Hello, Peter. And it's looking like we have a deal on Gaza. And we'll let you know. I think it's a deal that will get the hostages back. It's going to be a deal that will end the war. It's going to be a deal which it's going to be peace. I think we have a deal. That'll be number 8, Peter. Not Peter.
Mr. President, I'm James Comey. Now that James Comey has been indicted, who is the next president on your list of this president?
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats. Because Comey essentially was he was worse than a Democrat. I would say the Democrats are better than Comey. But no, there'll be others. Look, that's my opinion. They weaponized the Justice Department like nobody in history. What they've done is terrible. And so I hope there are others. You can't let this happen to a country.
Will you appoint a permanent U.S. attorney to try this case? Halligan has never tried to.
Well, we'll see, but it's a pretty easy case because, look, he lied. You saw my truth today. He lied. Yes, no. He didn't say, well, in my opinion, he didn't do a lot of things that maybe he should have, but I don't think he could because he lied. That was a very important question that he was asked. And he wanted to be specific, but he didn't. The only thing that happened to him, he didn't think he'd get caught. That answer that he gave, that was a very important answer. And it was for him, it was a very good answer if he didn't get caught. But he got caught lying to Congress.
Are you worried now that the next time there's a Democratic president, they will indict your FBI director or people in your administration?
That's what they tried to do, right? They did it with me for 4 years. They went after me. They went after me for 4 years, and that doesn't include the 4 great years that we had in the White House. So when I ran it from 2016 when we won, it began before I got to office. You know that. Wait a minute. Before I came to office, I started hearing rumors about Russia. I said, what the hell do I have to do with Russia? Nothing. And then it got worse and worse, and some of the fakers, not you, but some of the fake news picked it up and they loved it. And we went through a long time with that. And despite that, we had a great first term.
That's how it went. Where they think no and think mugshot. Is this more about justice or is it about revenge?
It's about justice, really. It's not revenge. It's also about the fact that you can't let this go on. They are sick, radical left people, and they can't get away with it. And Comey was one of the people. He wasn't the biggest, but he's a dirty cop. He's always been a dirty cop. Everybody knew it. And it's, as far as the case is concerned, he gave an answer. It was a strong answer. He then verified it a couple of times because that was a very important answer. If he would have equivocated, if he would have been like a little bit less sure, that would have been very bad for him. So he gave an answer. The only problem is for him, he didn't think it'd be caught, and he got caught, Peter. This is about justice. He lied a lot, but this was a very important thing. He could have said, well, maybe, or I don't remember. He didn't say that. He gave a very specific answer, and then he verified it numerous times, and he got caught. The problem that Comey has is he got caught lying, and he was very strong. It's not like, well, maybe, or I don't remember. He gave a very specific answer because it was a very powerful question, a very important question. And when he gave the answer, the only problem is he got caught. Well, we're going to see if the radical left Democrats want to shut it down. And it's up to them. We have a great economy going. You saw the numbers yesterday. They're fantastic. The economy's doing well. Prices are down. We have virtually no inflation. Everything's going good. We're respected by every nation in the world. And you know what happens? The Democrats want to shut it down. And they want to shut it down because they want to give billions, ultimately trillions of dollars to illegal migrants, people that came into our country illegally. Some of those people are criminals, but they came into our country illegally, and they want to give them the essential over years, trillions of dollars, and our people aren't going to stand for it. They also want to have open borders. They want to have men and women sports. They want to have transgender for everybody. These people are crazy, the Democrats. So if it has to shut down, it'll have to shut down. But they're the ones that are shutting down. Ryder Cup.
And President Trump speaking to press before heading to the Ryder Cup via Air Force One. And we are joined by the Daily Caller's Ashley Brassfield on a big week of news, specifically the Empire State in New York. Can you believe, Ashley, that Governor Kathy Hochul was booed by the Ryder Cup fans just the other day, and Carson Daly was left speechless, someone who usually can fill the room with words, being a former MTV VJ. I think he's on Today's Show or something now, but he was a bit perplexed to see that people just don't really like the Emperor of New York.
Well, that's what happens, Bobby, when you get out of New York City. You know, you get real Americans and real New Yorkers in this case, that's their opinion on her. And, New York City is this kind of microcosm of liberalism and socialism, especially with Mamdani coming on the scene. And I talked about this the other day. 20 years ago, Giuliani was the mayor of New York City, and now we have to worry about a socialist. So that's where we come to. But regular New Yorkers, not fans, obviously, and especially golf fans with the Ryder Cup.
We'll see with what's expected, Elise Stefanik potentially jumping into that gubernatorial race. I get the emails on a regular basis that anything that happens, her team has a response to it. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that race might shape up in 2026. And speaking of New York, a big week at the United Nations. So you have really the scandal there of this escalator that could have really injured the president and the first lady, but it gave a happen chance that he ran into President Lula of Brazil. The two have been exchanging words, completely different ideologies. And what we're watching in the Brazilian nation, the fact that Bolsonaro's really going through exactly what President Trump did with this lawfare and being accused and convicted of not only coercion, but trying to upend the government and cause a coup. 27 years. They've also sentenced his son in this process. How do you anticipate their meeting next week, which might be located in the West Wing of the White House?
Yeah, I think it's a huge problem. Bolsonaro has made multiple appearances here in Washington, D.C., but once again, judicial lawfare happening in another country, mirroring what happened exactly to the President of the United States and former president at the time, Donald Trump. But, the UN General Assembly incidents with the escalator, I thought we were about to have a golden escalator moment again, Bobby, going upwards this time. But of course it stopped. And, there was rumblings, Caroline Levitt especially posting one of an article of, a source saying that this might happen prior to even President Trump going to the event, as well as, they were saying the teleprompters weren't working. And even the first lady apparently made a comment to the president saying that his mic was extremely low. The volume in the room was very hard to hear. So 3 different instances makes you question, going into this General Assembly, the respect the UN has for the United States and the president. And President Trump made that very clear, this is not going well.
And someone as tough as President Trump, there's no question, it still has to be quite the room to walk into, because I would say it's about 50-50 right now of diplomats and world leaders who really believe in what we believe in, Western civilization, that rights come from God, that it's not about the government dominating their people, and then in turn also the government providing a path for their people. As President Trump said, let's do everything we can for freedom of speech, for religious liberty, for Christianity, the most persecuted religion in the entire world. There were not exactly cheers happening. There were some laughs, because I think that President Trump has shown with his humor that people actually really like him, whether it be the most radical, extreme dictator to another freedom fighter that could be someone like a Giorgia Meloni of Italy. But it's very true that he's up against a world that is united with these BRICS nations, with these ideologies like communism, Islamism, to secular humanism and globalism that seek to upend the West. And ultimately, what is in their way when it comes to a new world order? It's the United States of America.
Right. I think you explained it correctly, but I really feel like it's a den of wolves for President Trump to be walking into, is how I picture it. A lot of opposition coming from them. He even pointed out himself, he's ended multiple wars, not a comment from the UN in general on that. So I think you're exactly right on principles of Western civilization. I don't think the UN typically comes out and speaks out about that, especially in recent years, and especially in support of President Trump in any way. But we even saw the confirmation happen recently of Mike Waltz, of course, as UN ambassador. So he's been able to go into those high-level meetings, which I think having someone representing the United States in a way that to be correctly done is very important when it comes to UN General Assembly, to see what is going on, the conversations being had there, and the type of organization it is at this point.
I was very proud to see that Secretary Kennedy and HHS leading in negotiations to remove from an international declaration on so-called human rights that would have endorsed abortion all the way up to term, up to the birth date for the child. And he said that the United States will not be part of anything like that. And it's great to see how MAHA and MAGA have come together, because that was some of the concern with the pro-life community going into the election last year, that someone like a Secretary Kennedy, who is traditionally pro-choice, would not represent pro-life values. But clearly, this administration standing up to those globalists who seek to usurp their authority and upend the values of this country.
Right. Well, I think the United States is the cornerstone of human rights in general. I don't think we should be inserting ourselves into other countries talking about their own human rights when it comes to abortion rights. I mean, Donald Trump even specified this, stating that, abortion should go back to the decision of the states. And kind of the same concept goes for many of these countries, I would think, in a lot of ways. Something the United States doesn't really need to be concerned about and involved in any way. And I think they made that very clear. It was so great to see from Secretary Kennedy. And of course, with the recent findings with Tylenol and research going into autism, I think there's a lot of important things going to be coming out from HHS coming soon. I actually sat down last week with Peter McCullough talking about vaccines, relation to autism, having that conversation. And I think that, you got to open up to conversation. And once again, free speech in these areas, not being so conclusive, and seeing, we have 1 in 31 children being diagnosed with this. So, why wouldn't we? The trend has skyrocketed up in the last 20 years. Having those open conversations is so important. And that's what we do best here in the United States, is with free speech.
Now, did you find any new developments from Dr. McCullough, as I know he's someone very dedicated to this and who was literally canceled during what we saw over the course of the last few years with specifically mandates and his work on mRNA. But does he think there's a link there between potential vaccines and autism, or even this Tylenol link that is now warning people? We've gone a complete 180 in this country, although it's generally safe to use, it's not as safe as once believed, and that's why we might be seeing the spikes in some of these diseases.
Yeah, well, he explained to me actually that, he's seeing the linkage, and even Tylenol, there's a resurfaced tweet from 2017 advising pregnant women not to take it. And of course, they've, talked about the warnings unless it's a very high fever. Well, Dr. McCullough actually told me that the high fever usually he thinks is sparked by the MMR vaccine, just due to the impact on the body's immune system in general, due to the fact that it's a combination vaccine overall. Therefore, having to take Tylenol for a high fever in many ways. So I really do think he is going back to the vaccination standpoint on that. Not that vaccinations necessarily are all bad, but the factor that it is a combination vaccine. And even President Trump specified this in his press conference. He feels that, these vaccinations should be taken individually rather than a combination way. So kind of in line with the president there. And I think we're going to be seeing more come out with this. Of course, it's been kind of a short period of time that they've been looking into just not even the vaccine, but the environmental factors as well. And I think this Tylenol was the starter of something that's bigger, in my opinion.
Oh, it's so true, Ashley, that it has been a short period of time. We're looking at roughly 250 days into the second term, but many people rather impatient considering the violation of human rights, the violation of people losing their jobs to losing family members over the course of the AutoPen incompetence. But it looks like there's light at the end of the tunnel. The investigators now becoming the investigated, and 2 indictments for former FBI Director James Comey. Truly unprecedented, because if you look back to the days of J. Edgar Hoover, he was the one who was really running Washington, D.C. Great to see accountability at some of the highest levels of the Department of Justice.
Absolutely. I would say it's not really a message in the sand anymore. It's out there with James Comey, of course. But, I think that many people wanted to see this happen. Of course, the results of this are kind of in question of where this will go. But being held accountable, once again, is what the American people want to see. They want to see results. And that's something Washington doesn't always deliver on. I think we're, looking at others that we feel probably definitely committed crimes in some ways, especially Republicans. To name a few, John Brennan, Anthony Fauci being another one, going back to pharma and his impact during the COVID times, and, gain of function research overall, but multiple names being thrown out there that, went after President Trump in many ways through the judicial system, lying, war crimes even, that you probably could throw out there that need to be looked at. And hopefully we'll see something soon on that. But, James Comey making headlines yesterday.
Yes, no question about that. And of course, presumed innocent before a proof of guilt, whether it's by a jury of the peers or by a judge. And that's why our system is so incredible, and a biblical system, in fact, that set up our government. So we will see what happens with all of that. Now, President Trump getting on Marine One moments ago to Air Force One at Joint Base Andrews, it looked like he already had his golf shoes on. And we know that golf and the presidency has really been hand in hand ever since FDR, I don't know how much he played, but I know that Dwight D. Eisenhower was a huge fan, and every president since has hit the links, perhaps none better than President Trump. And his granddaughter Kai, who's on that golf scholarship to Miami, she's joining him for the Ryder Cup. There might be some rumors as well that in the second half of today's rounds, Bryson DeChambeau might walk out the tunnel with the president himself. Ashley, can you put on your sports hat, break down what might happen this weekend in the 45th edition of the Ryder Cup?
Yeah, well, I think that it's going to be a great event here at the Daily Caller. We're big golf fans overall, and I'm from Georgia, so Augusta National is kind of in our backyard, so it's kind of in our blood, I'd say. But it's going to be, I think, a great tournament. Of course, the president's not shy of saying how, much of a fan he is of golf and how much he golfs, really. It's kind of a bonding experience, with businessmen specifically overall. So really goes with him. And of course, he's great with events. They kind of, they like to make that walkout. So like you said, Bryson DeChambeau has become actually very involved within the administration, taking pictures outside the White House, of course, on putting green. So I think it's going to be really fun. It's kind of that juxtaposition that everyone needs. He's meeting with President Erdogan of Turkey, and then the next day he's at the Ryder Cup. So I think that's just very Trump of him. And, it's going to be a great event. I think it's fun for the media to cover and for Americans to see him in his element, I would say.
Yes, and it's quite unique because it's almost as if soccer world comes together with golf because of the cheering, and it's not necessarily quiet around the tees and the greens, and it's that team competition where traditionally it's very much a singles game. So we look forward to that and wish Team USA the best. And I thought it was really special because Rory McIlroy and most of Team Europe and Team USA, they are these cultural icons, from Scotty Scheffler, who's very excited to see the president, and apparently they have a texting relationship of some sort. I'm not sure that President Trump, I don't know if that has to go through someone or how that works, but they have conversations more often than not. Many of these individuals in the cast of Happy Gilmore too, so making their splash in cultural politics and the discussions as well. But Rory McIlroy was asked a question about the United States, and he said this is the greatest country in the world, although he's with Team Europe from Northern Ireland, now making his home in the free Sunshine State of Florida. It seems as if this revival happening in our culture, that you have these people who are, let's just say, celebrities, for lack of a better term, really pointing back to it was hard work, it was my determination, but it's also this great country that provided so much for me.
Right. Well, I think that Scotty Scheffler does such a great job. I know you named him. Seeing his son run up to him after winning tournaments is just like the highlight, I think, of everybody's day, seeing those photos. It became a Nike campaign ad, I believe. But yeah, President Trump's been very involved in the golf world. He's been friends with many of those guys for a very long time. And if any of them would like to do an interview, I'd love to sit down with them to talk about it. I'm a big golf fan myself, but Tiger Woods, I believe, is a very close relationship still with the president, and then many others, like you said, Rory McIlroy, married to an American, by the way, as well. So, I think he's right. That we do live in the greatest country on earth, and many of these guys have gotten an opportunity to become big in the golf world because of that opportunity that the United States has provided, and many of these tours like PGA that were started here. I think it's part of our culture overall, and that's something to be proud of.
I will join you in that interview request because I have somewhat of a beef with Rory. I was at the Tour Championship in Atlanta recently, and someone had this Hawaiian shirt with his face all over it, and we were waiting for him, and he came out the front door to where they park, and he's with his bodyguard. And the gentleman just said, "Please, Rory, sign this. I've been waiting all day." And he looked over and he just shook his head and said, "No, brother," and just kept walking. It was a bit awkward, but just had a moment there. So they are as human as we are, but with exquisite talent on the golf course, and a game that everyone shares, and something that both of our great one continent, one nation can come together, the two largest economies in the world, for fun competition this weekend, which I think we all need, given just what's happened the last few weeks with the violence, and President Trump so committed to righting wrongs and justice in the nation's capital, signing that executive order for the death penalty in Washington, D.C. So now, if you kill a police officer, if you're guilty of first-degree murder, even other counts, you can be eligible for the death penalty in Washington, D.C. Do you find any fallout from that, given the municipality and the federal city?
I haven't seen any fallout on that. I think, multiple people across the country would agree with that. Of course, DC being a very liberal city, I'm sure you're going to get some pushback here and there, but nothing major that I've seen. Of course, we've seen the National Guard presence still here in DC, which has been great, in my opinion. And, still seeing, signs around Union Station. There's a bunch of tents still out there, people protesting. National Park Service, actually, who, permits those tents being able to be out there, still allowing that. But, the crime is definitely down and the results are being seen. It's deterrence in a lot of ways, like we talked about in the past. But, this death penalty, being able to protect our law enforcement and police officers should be, paramount in this situation, in my opinion.
Yes, they put on a uniform every day and they're willing to lay down their lives. No greater love than to lay down a life for a friend, for a brother, for many loved ones. And they're willing to do that. And it's something that just, I'm amazed by it. I love what I do. I know you love what you do, but to think that people are still willing, ready, and able to put on that uniform every day to serve their community, that's a different sort of devotion and love. And we are with them here at Right Side Broadcasting Network all of the way to help advocate for what they do. And Ashley, anything on Capitol Hill that we could see around the corner? I know that Mr. Comer working hard on these investigations. We might see Anna Paulina Luna working on bringing out things that could be declassified in the future. But what do you see around the bend as we enter the fall season and get ready for the holidays? I can't believe how quick this year is going by.
I know, it is crazy. Of course, government funding being a big topic this week. The continuing resolution is one of the main things on Capitol Hill this week to get that done. Another being that, Epstein has still not gone away. As much as people maybe to their dismay, that discharge resolution from Congressman Massey, it's still lingering. So that's going to be a continuing battle. We're doing a few pieces on that currently, but a lot of stuff always happening, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we look forward to it, and we look forward to 2026. I'm sure you'll be right on the beat, covering everything happening in Congress and potentially a big primary for Mr. Massey in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. But it's Ashley Brassfield with the Daily Caller and covering the city beat and Capitol Hill for our eyes and ears. Thanks for joining us, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
And as we cover President Trump's trip to Farmingdale, New York, it's Bethpage Black. It's one of the hardest golf courses in the entire country. It has a warning on it that you better be good or you probably shouldn't play because you won't enjoy your round, unlike anything else in the golf world. Thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. It is your go-to for flu season prep. Prepare your medicine cabinet and get that stocked. Also, you can bring these 200 essential medications on vacation with you, whether it's Tamiflu, antibiotics to ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, NAD+, methylene blue also, and this is a big also, antibiotics and the emergency medical kit. So crucial to have when you're in a jam. So think about this. If your family member wakes up with a cough, the sniffles, any sort of flu, and the medicine cabinet isn't stocked up, and oh my goodness, the football games tomorrow, you're traveling to Athens, Georgia, or Auburn, Alabama, or perhaps to Knoxville, Tennessee, somewhere in the SEC where it means more, and then you don't have these life-saving medications. Not very smart. So allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, your go-to. RSBN 10% off. You'll get these life-saving meds within 2 to 3 days, if not sooner. Scan the QR code there now. It's no red tape, no bureaucracy, no insurance. It doesn't matter. You throw it out the window because doctors and nurses, pharmacists caring for you and who are also patriots as well. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. There's also covepure.com/RSBN. Get $200 off of the Drinking Pure and Living Pure reverse osmosis system that is dominating the entire market. It's as easy as having a coffee maker and machine right on your kitchen countertop, as you can see from the video there. Also, different temperature items and buttons to choose from. So nice and hot right there, as you can see, going up to 170, if not more. Also lukewarm to cold. This machine is prepared for you. Now, it's Clearwater technology, truly the best in the business. It removes 99.9% of impurities out of the water, from fluoride to agricultural runoff to hormone-disrupting birth control. And you might say, how does that get into the water? Well, when we take antibiotics and birth controls to whatever it might be as our daily medications that does not fully get absorbed into our system, so therefore it has somewhere to go. There's a runoff, and water treatment facilities do not take all of these toxins out of the water. So therefore, if you don't want these things, you probably shouldn't be drinking tap water. In addition to that, JAMA Pediatrics, doing a study with their doctors and scientists, if children are drinking out of the tap on a regular basis, they can lose more than 2 points of IQ. Don't do that to your family. At least we have some legislators as well, Utah and Florida, passing legislation to remove the fluoride from the water. So Secretary Kennedy, he has to pat himself on the back for fighting for clean air and water throughout his career. But you should no longer worry. CovePure.com/RSBN, $200 off of truly this life-saving machine that's easy to use. Drink pure, live pure. It's CovePure.com/RSBN. Also get your Trump memorabilia through 47knife.com. It's Patriot Addict deals. They're at it again with the Trump combat knife. It's a 3 bundle for $65. Get a 30% off code. It's RSBN30, RSBN30 for an additional 30% off. Scan that QR code now. I have mine at home. It's one of my favorite knife items. I actually collect those. So 47knife.com to get yours. It's a great site. It will go quick. Mine went quick the first time. We know that this awesome Patriot Act Deals site, these things go fast. So be sure to visit today and get ready to order right before you enjoy the Ryder Cup this weekend, which is currently underway. 47knife.com to get yours, as there is, I believe, that live look at the Farmingdale Municipal Airport where President Trump will be landing probably roughly 30 minutes or so from now. Very, very quick flight. So as that happens, we'll take a quick commercial break here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Do not change the dial. Clean off those golf clubs. Get the nachos ready. It is the 45th edition of the Ryder Cup. Come back to see us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're covering President Trump's trip to the Ryder Cup. And I'm Robert McNeely. It's always wonderful to be with you here at the live desk, your go-to live desk since January of this year, bringing you unbridled access to your 45th and 47th President of the United States, the 50th Vice President, and your 119th Congress with all of the breaking news this week. There are great economic numbers cut for Mr. Producer, and it's very clear that this president's tariff policies in reshaping the global economy is working. Great numbers came out today on the economy at 3.8% and the success we are having. But our interest rates are too high. If it weren't for Jerome Too Late Powell, he's become a very common name in the news, we would be at 2% right now and in the process of balancing our budget. The good news is that we're powering through his incompetence and will soon be doing, as a country, better than we have ever done before. And it's with the tariffs, as President Trump announcing yesterday a 100% tariff with cut number 5. Starting October 1st, we will be imposing a 100% tariff on any branded or patented pharmaceutical product unless the company is building their pharmaceutical manufacturing plant right here in America. Is building will be defined as breaking ground and or under construction. There will therefore be no tariff on these pharmaceutical products if construction has started. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And the list goes on and on with a 50% tariff with cut number 6. We will be imposing a 50% tariff on all kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and associated products starting on October 1st. Additionally, we will be charging a 30% tariff on upholstered furniture. The reason for this is the large-scale flooding of these products into the United States by other outside countries. It is a very unfair process and practice, but we must protect for the national security and other reasons our manufacturing process. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then there are truck tariffs, cut number 7 at 25%. In order to protect our great heavy truck manufacturers from unfair outside competition, I will be imposing, as of October 1st of 2025, a 25% tariff on all heavy, big trucks made in other parts of the world. Therefore, our great large truck company manufacturers such as Peterbilt, Kenworth, Freightliner, Mack Trucks, and others will be protected from the onslaught of outside interruptions. We need our truckers to be financially healthy and strong for many reasons, but above all else, national security. This president focused on that. And it has really worked, although you have a situation of legacy media saying that this is not the way to go. They have been flat out wrong on that because you look at how many different nations have come to the table wanting to access American markets, even with tariff thresholds presented to them. It could be 10%, 15%, 20%. President Trump knows what he's doing, and it's true free trade and fair trade combined when you have tariffs involved. It's already brought billions back into the American economy, and God willing, will start to decrease that national debt at $36 trillion thanks to President Trump's predecessors. So the globalist mentality, it's out the window. And I think that's become very clear for most households throughout the country, especially because you have Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama, and the auto pen who sought to bankrupt Detroit and bankroll Beijing. The opposite is happening. Go back to now 5 months ago, can you believe it, to the 100-day celebration in Michigan, just outside of Detroit. And the UAW president and union leaders coming together to celebrate President Trump's first 100 days in office. We were there live, and it was extraordinary to watch the smiles in the room after 4 years that decided to export American manufacturing and weaken the ethos of this great country with open borders and with lawlessness. But President Trump making America wealthy again, and in turn making America great again. And who was there? None other than Mike Lindell, our good friend, mypillow.com/RSBN. He's the master marketer, as President Trump has put it, and someone who loves free speech and election integrity. Heck, he might run for governor of Minnesota, breaking that news to my colleague, Mr. Matthew Alvarez, just last week. So we'll follow up with Mike Lindell to see if that is going to happen. But in the meantime, the 6-piece towel sets are back in stock, regularly priced at $70, 70. It's now under $40, $39.98, very limited quantity and still a very high quality of a product right out of his manufacturing facilities made here in America. Call today. Don't delay. It's 800-836-7566, 800-836-7566, mypillow.com/RSBN. Thank you to Mike Lindell and MyPillow. It's a great way to get your sleep back on track. Also a great way to actually have towels that absorb the moisture and the water, especially when you come right out of the shower. You ever have those towels that just fall apart or they can't hold up when you're washing them or putting them in the dryer? Not with the MyPillow towels. They're some of the best in the business. mypillow.com/RSBN for 2,000 plus products right there at MyPillow. If you like what you see with this new rebranded network, we've been on the air for over a decade now as your go-to live desk, seeing the sights from last year on the campaign trail, 2024, historic. Just last year, I look back at the calendar and say, wow, we were traveling just about everywhere. Just last year, 366 days ago in Mint Hill, North Carolina, for a manufacturing facility rally with none other than the future president of the United States. What a time it was to showcase that with you. But since January, we've become your go-to live desk, and we try to make it fun. We try to make it lighthearted, but also bring you those serious topics that make a difference in your life, those kitchen counter items and issues where you think about your future, you think about your savings, you think about your retirement, but also you think about the future of this great country. And we'd be very honored to have your donation to go up against a legacy media that sometimes does not want the best for you and yours in the heart of this country. They're bi-coastal, they're perverted at times, they're goofy at best, and they sometimes don't have your interests at heart, but we do here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. You could donate at rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. There's also a physical address if you like the old school way of checks or a money order. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6. That's Box 344. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. It's in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you so much for your hard-earned dollars to keep this mission going right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. In the meantime as well, make sure that your savings, retirement, preservation of wealth, all in stock. Call today and don't delay. It's 888-617-7994 for your complimentary presidential gold guide from none other than Monetary Gold. Call immediately to discover how you can eliminate your annual IRA fees permanently for life. It's rsbnforthegold.com as our Team USA pursues the gold at the Ryder Cup. Make sure that you have gold and silver in your pocket. Tangible metals that Robert Kiyosaki talks about, a friend of President Trump, an author and investor, stating that you have to diversify in gold and silver and precious metals because paper money and inflation, it just doesn't cut it at the end of the day. And if you lose out on, my goodness, all of that inflation, $37 trillion in debt, where are you to turn if the banks fail like two did this year? So rsbnforthegold.com, Monetary Gold, as we catch a glimpse of Air Force One about to touch down in Farmingdale, New York, just miles away from Bethpage Black and the State Park and Golf Course on Long Island, one of the premier golf courses in the entire country. And a golf trip that I'm hoping that my friends organize within the next year or two. Not that any of them are watching, because they're busy watching the Ryder Cup right now. As we cover President Trump's trip to the Ryder Cup, he has golf shoes on, he is ready to go. And that might mean that he might do a walkout through the tunnel. I'm hearing rumors that for the second round of competition this afternoon, he will do just that with a certain Bryson DeChambeau or even Scottie Scheffler, the number one in the world. So we'll watch that closely as President Trump touching down on Air Force One. We know that Kai Trump, his granddaughter, who is on scholarship at Miami for golf, is on the plane with him. I believe Ivanka Trump is with him as well. So a family affair today, along with staff members, to enjoy this extraordinary competition that happens biannually. So every 2 years, the United States and Europe get together. They've been doing it for roughly a century or so now to celebrate what is golf's finest hour and perhaps its most legendary team competition, something that everyone looks forward to enjoy a weekend of not only football, but golf, a great game that has helped shape Western civilization going back to Scotland in goodness, the late 17th century, if not before. Think about that, how silly that might be just to take a stick and hit a ball down the field into a tiny little hole. And heck, we'll do it 18 times, as the late, great Robin Williams would poke fun at the idea of the game of golf. But it's captured the hearts and minds of countless men, and I think people throughout the United States, especially since Tiger Woods came onto the scene, and an individual who ended up with the Presidential Medal of Freedom as well. So very exciting to see how golf and the presidency intersect. In fact, on one of my tours of the West Wing many years ago, a dear friend of mine actually works in the White House and gave us one of those tours. And because President Trump uses Ronald Reagan's rug that's inside of the Oval Office, that rug does not fully encapsulate the perimeter of the Oval Office. So there are Italian oak floors that were laid prior to President Dwight D. Eisenhower's tenure in office. And there are scuff marks as you enter the Oval Office from the southeast side. And I asked him, I said, what are those scuff marks? He said, well, believe it or not, it's President Eisenhower's golf cleats. Because back when he was golfing, you could still wear those steel golf cleats that are mostly banned on most courses now because they kick up too much of the dirt, the sand, the grass, and it takes too much repair, and they can be dangerous at times. But he would walk into the Oval Office. That's how often Dwight D. Eisenhower played golf, and scuffed up the floors, and they thought, well, we just replaced them, so we might as well just leave them. So living history right there in the Oval Office at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And we know if there's perhaps an even better golfer, it is President Donald Trump, a scratch golfer, winning a couple of his Bedminster and Palm Beach International tournaments this year. In fact, when we were visiting on Air Force One down in Florida for some questions where the Autopen lineage was born back over St. Patrick's Day weekend a few months ago, yes, President Trump was playing golf all that weekend and celebrating big successes early on in the administration at Trump International in Palm Beach. So golf and the presidency intersect in a massive way, especially post-World War II. All of them being fans of golf and playing the game themselves, but perhaps, again, no one as scratch and as good, and could honestly probably have been on at least the senior tour if he so pursued it, President Donald Trump. And he likes to make the golf world a part of his life. We'll be playing some videos for you as well. The world's number one, Scotty Scheffler, speaking on appreciating the president's support, receiving texts, receiving phone calls from him as well about the team and what it looks like this year in the 45th edition of this fair competition in Farmingdale, New York. 2 years from now, it's in a very special location for the exact 100-year mark of the Ryder Cup. It began in 1927. The 2027 mark will be at Adair Manor in Ireland, a fantastic location, somewhere where I can say I've had the privilege of playing that course, and America and Europe, the entire world, in fact, in for a treat of that small village of roughly 2,500 Irishmen in southwest Ireland. That will be one to see, but in the meantime, it's on American soil first in what the Americans hope to reclaim the Ryder Cup trophy, and President Trump all here for it, as you see doing a quick U-turn on Air Force One to approach the landing site. And we'll see President Trump vacate Air Force One along with family and staff to enjoy what should be an afternoon of smiles and celebration. And he deserves it, with a number of different items on the docket, from a strong economy to making D.C. safe again, implementing the death penalty by executive order, reinstating all of TikTok and its operations here in the United States with the continued discussions with the Chinese Communist Party. We'll see if a meeting will be forthcoming with the Chinese premier. It seems like that will be the one piece of the puzzle President Trump will use to complete what has been an extraordinarily successful first year, roughly 250 days into office. Can you believe how quickly this is going by? But we know that he's been deeply concerned with the attacks on ICE in Dallas, Texas, to all attacks on police officers throughout the country. They do a very dangerous job, and we'll see how this is addressed with the National Guard in Memphis, Tennessee, perhaps New Orleans, Louisiana, and ultimately, will that happen in Chicago, Illinois? We know ICE has had Operation Midway Blitz underway to move in and remove criminal illegal aliens, many repeat offenders, many who are charged with heinous crimes from abusing children to grand theft, larceny, grand theft auto, to burglary, among many other charges, and deportations or trial dates waiting as we see this president focused on making America safe again. It's been the main priority as we've seen a month that has been rather tragic with violence. And our thoughts and prayers with those who have seen that random violence, whether it be at the hands of illegal aliens or far left ideology. The proof has been in the pudding that there is a pattern to these crimes. There's a pattern to the rhetoric on the far left calling Republican politicians Nazis and fascists. And we will make that call here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Join our media colleagues and those, especially House Speaker Mike Johnson, who have said this has to come to an end, especially on the Democrat side. These elected officials should know better and should encourage those to have correct, productive dialogue and not call their opponents egregious names and things that are just completely not the truth. And conservatives, I think, are learning in many ways how to peacefully and patriotically stand for the values that have made this civilization the greatest constitutional republic on the face of the earth. This will be a good moment for President Trump to enjoy some golf, and we have some fun videos for you over this broadcast to show the build-up to the Ryder Cup, which is now underway in its 45th edition, the 98th year of it, in fact. Let's go there live now to Air Force One. We'll see the staff and family coming off of the plane and ultimately the President of the United States. President Trump en route to Bethpage Black from the Farmingdale Municipal Airport. We are covering his trip to the 45th edition of the Ryder Cup. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. Thank you for being with us today on this beautiful Friday in America. Thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Prepare your medicine cabinet for cold and flu season and all of the COVID prep. They have it all for you. From Tamiflu to antibiotics, antivirals, also ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, NAD+, methylene blue, immune support, and 200 essential medications, including emergency medical kits, antibiotics, all there for you. No red tape, no insurance, no problem. It's no hassle. In fact, no bureaucracy, just life-saving, affordable medications shipped to your door from an online pharmacy that is dominating in its lane, focused on bringing healthy medications to you, the American people. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, code RSBN10. That's 10% off. Scan the QR code now. Prepare your medicine cabinet before flu season. And you can also take these life-saving meds with you on the road. So it's a win-win situation. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And with the Ryder Cup this weekend, put in your Kalshi.com/RSBN trades and bets. Who will win the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, 7 wars have been solved and peace throughout the world in 7 months. Donald Trump is the front runner for Oslo, Norway's grand prize. Will Zelensky meet with Putin in January? Will it be bilateral or trilateral? Both leaders requesting President Trump's presence there in Moscow or Kiev or on a neutral site. Scan the QR code now for those questions, including who will win the World Series as we enter into the baseball playoffs less than 1 week away from today. And again, the Ryder Cup this weekend, or your favorite college football team, it all can be traded and bet on here in the good old US of A at Kalshi.com/RSBN. There's also Angel Paste. It's the miracle, especially this time of year as the temperatures get a little bit cooler and that dry skin hits you. It does that for me, so I use this on a daily basis. It's the miracle cream. Vitamin B infused, non-GMO, no chemicals. They have a facial spray. They also have an orange option that is infused with vitamin C, also non-GMO, no chemicals. Experience the miracle out of Spring, Texas. They sit right near the Gulf of America, a wonderful place to live in the Lone Star State. AngelPaste.com, Christian-owned. They hire veterans, and they care about patriots like you and me. Experience the miracle today. That is AngelPaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. It looked as if President Trump answered some questions for press before getting into the beast. We'll have that for you soon for playback. In the meantime, we have some rather humorous videos to go through and some informational regarding President Trump's trip to the Ryder Cup in Farmingdale, New York. But in case you did miss yesterday, President Trump protecting TikTok, very favorable towards TikTok with the executive order in Cut 8, showcasing his love for the site.
Ooh, look at that. It says TikTok. My, what is that all about?
I'm going to have to start thinking about TikTok. Maybe we got to keep this sucker around for a little while. For all of those that want to save TikTok in America, vote for Trump. I like TikTok. I like it. I said we need to save TikTok.
There are numerous ways you can buy TikTok, and we will find the one that's best for the country.
I'd like to see TikTok remain alive. TikTok is back.
As President Trump continued with those executive orders yesterday from the Oval Office, we can play cut 14, Mr. Producer, with President Trump's executive orders that highlighted a death penalty to be a consequence within Washington, D.C., to TikTok being reinstated, to making America great again, including the use of H-1B visas. Here's that video for you.
In recent weeks, months, and years, we've seen a tremendous upsurge in some highly visible, but also other acts of domestic terrorism and organized political violence being perpetrated by radical, politically motivated groups all over the country. What this presidential memorandum will do is set off an administration-wide response to that.
This is the first time in American history that there is an all-of-government effort to dismantle left-wing terrorism, to dismantle Antifa, to dismantle the organizations that have been carrying out these acts of political violence and terrorism. This is part of an organized campaign of radical left terrorism. It is structured, it is sophisticated, it is well-funded, it is well-planned. There is really no parallel like this to anything else in the country right now. Because of President Trump's strength, because of his vision, because of his leadership, we are now going to use the entire force of the federal government to uproot these organizations root and branch.
And something long overdue, and Stephen Miller speaking eloquently on that very issue. We do have that gaggle for you from President Trump getting off of Air Force One speaking to the press.
This is Bruce Blakeman. He's the boss out here. He's done a phenomenal job. He has my complete and total endorsement. And he's really a great guy. So I just want to thank him for meeting me at the plane. The team is not doing so well. So when I heard that, I said, let's get on the plane. We have to fly and help them. They've lost 3 matches and they're tied in 1. So that's not so well, but we'll get it done. One way or the other, we'll get it done. Any questions? Matches today, will you give a pep talk to Team USA? Yeah, I'll be Newt Rockney. You know, I went with Randy Levine 2 weeks ago, right? Were you there? Yes. The Yankees. And with the Steinbrenner family, it looked like they weren't going to make the playoffs. And since then, they've been hot, and they're now first place. And Aaron Judge went on a spree. He's been on a spree. So do the same thing over here. It's true. The Yankees now are in first place, and they were having a hard time even making the playoffs. What was that, 11 or 12 days ago, right? Was anybody there? Were you there? Yes. Big over here, but I think we'll be okay. Look, all great golfers, both teams. I know most of them, and they're great golfers. A lot of companies are moving into the U.S. so they don't have to pay tariffs. If we didn't have that, they wouldn't do it. But they are moving in. He knows because they're moving into your territory. But a lot of companies are moving into the U.S. in order not to pay tariffs. And I think because
he's doing an amazing job. His strength has brought incredible prosperity, and he is incredibly popular here in New York State and especially in Nassau County. And we're blessed to have you here, Mr. President. Thank you so much. And you are going to bring the strength to our team, and we will win.
We better.
We better.
Thank you.
President Trump en route to Bethpage Black and the golf course where our team is not doing so well, but they might turn that around, just as he mentioned the Yankees doing since his visit. So it's time for the Newt Rockney pep talk, which I appreciate being a Notre Dame fan myself. So President Trump, we know that sports a big part of his life and a very competitive person. He was a captain of his high school team, in fact, for baseball. So someone who is a very talented athlete in his own right, and golf being his probably number one choice of sports. So we look forward to seeing his enjoyment of what is one of the finest competitions in all of the world. Covepure.com/RSBN, a great go-to for reverse osmosis. In fact, the best in the business. Their Clearwater technology, removing 99.9% of the impurities out of the water, from fluoride to agricultural runoff and pesticides, ultimately to hormone-disrupting birth control pills. You might wonder, how the heck could that happen? Well, when people take these medications, they don't necessarily absorb completely into the system, so then run off through the toilet, going into a water treatment plant, and that plant does not remove all of the toxins, and therefore you can drink that in your tap water. Kind of gross, right? Well, even more disturbing, JAMA Pediatrics found with their doctors and scientists that children drinking regularly out of the tap water can lose more than 2 points on average in their IQ. So protect your family, drink pure, live pure, covepure.com/RSBN. This issue catching the attention. In fact, Secretary Kennedy devoting his life in legal services as an attorney against big government and big corporation who dumped pesticides and toxins and radioactive matter into the water. We all want clean air and water. It's common sense. So protect what matters most, especially with your gut health. And it's easy to invest in a machine that's just like a coffee maker right there on your kitchen counter. You can see the video there for warm water, cold water, hot water, whatever your needs are to start your morning at covepure.com/RSBN. Utah and Florida, in fact, introducing legislation to remove the toxins and fluoride specifically out of the water. So get $200 off now. The leading clear water technology using covepure.com/RSBN. Go ahead and scan that QR code there on your screen. And when you take care of your gut health and your right to natural, clean, pure, beautiful water, why not grab the best memorabilia from Patriot Attic Deals? It's 47knife.com, code RSBN30. RSBN30, get 30% off now for your Trump bundle. 3 Trump combat knives for $65. Scan that QR code there. Normally, it's $69 for one of these bad boys, but now via Patriot Attic Deals at 47knife.com, a 3 bundle with code RSBN30, 30% off. Make sure you get yours because you know I love this website. Whether it's that Trump plane to the Trump knife, I've got them all for my MAGA man cave. And it irritates a certain late night host that I have the memorabilia, and I'm happy it does. 47knife.com. Get yours today. Scan the QR code now, RSBN30. Trust me, this will be gone relatively soon. Grab your Trump combat knife today. Thank you to Patriot Attic Deals and 47knife.com for your sponsorship here on the right side of history. And as we cover President Trump's visit to the 45th edition and the 98th year of the Ryder Cup, let's take a quick commercial break for sponsors and stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Team USA not playing very well at the moment with the Session 1 foursomes. Europe is up 3-0 on the United States. So we'll see how that fourth round that's tied through 16 right now between Robert McIntyre and Victor Hovland for the Europeans against Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay. We'll watch that as President Trump is en route to the 45th Ryder Cup. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. It's always fun to do somewhat of a sports section on this lovely Friday, September 26th, in your nation's capital. The sun is shining from Washington, D.C. to Farmingdale, New York, all the way down here in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama. Now, some breaking news across the channels. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth calling back hundreds of generals and admirals for a meeting next week. We don't know what it's about, quite frankly, yet, but we should have some further details in the coming days as Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, to speak at the United Nations to take a strong stance against countries that support the Palestinian state during his UN address this morning. Sadly, Canada, the United Kingdom, and France really turning their backs on the United States and acknowledging a Palestinian state and calling for a two-state solution that really harkens back to the Carter administration and a failed policy, and making it even worse now given the fact that Hamas still really runs the show in Gaza, and it was Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthi rebels that have caused so much chaos and problems throughout the Middle East, especially in the October 7th strike dating back to 2023 that was Hamas-led against innocent civilians from the United States, Israel, and throughout the world at that concert. And we know roughly 48 hostages still out there. President Trump working diligently to retrieve the hostages that are being held by Hamas. So a very scary situation there. As a digital ID for the right to work, well, the UK might be doing that, providing a free digital ID for the right to work, and that will be going through Parliament next week. So we'll watch that as UK reform leader Nigel Farage, a friend of the network, has spoken out against it, being that Germany has practiced this, and in Nigel Farage's view, it's just another big government grab to watch over its citizens, and that the migrant crisis did not slow down in Germany as a result of them implementing those specific digital IDs. So we'll watch that story as we cover President Trump's latest trip to Farmingdale, New York, on Long Island for the 45th edition of this fair championship. But the United States team down 3-0 at the moment. Cut number 15, Mr. Producer, from yesterday, President Trump signing a series of executive orders on left-wing violence and going after Antifa, to upholding TikTok, and also the death penalty now being an option for Judge Jeanine Pirro, who is the top dog, the U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia. So that option for those who kill police officers or commit voluntary to first degree, second degree, third degree murder across the board. So that will be something not tolerated any longer within the federal city. So that will change the system with prosecutions, no doubt about that. But cut number 15, Mr. Producer, President Trump also, from a couple of weeks ago, redoing H-1B visas. It's been a big topic, especially for those who have to train their foreign counterpart to take their job. So in many cases, especially in the tech world, you'd have someone coming up to 60, 65, or even 70, and then giving years and years to their company, only to be replaced by a younger foreign worker who might have attended school here in the United States, but then gone back abroad to places like India, for example. Well, they're part of the BRICS nations trying to upend the U.S. dollar, and President Trump has had it. He wants legal, merit-based immigration. This is one of the first strong steps, and a buying into an H-1B system now where you would need something around $100,000 from the company in order to do so. So we have that playback for you, cut number 15.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the most abused visa systems in our current immigration system has been the H-1B non-immigrant visa program. This is supposed to allow highly skilled laborers who work in fields that Americans don't work in to come into the United States of America. What this proclamation will do is raise the fee that companies pay to sponsor H-1B applicants to $100,000. This will ensure that the people they're bringing in are actually very highly skilled and that they're not replaceable by American workers. So it'll protect American workers, but ensure that companies have a pathway to hire truly extraordinary people and bring them to the United States to work.
We need workers. We need workers. We need great workers. And this pretty much ensures that that's what's going to happen. I think, Sean, do you agree with that?
Well, they're $100,000 per year. So the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers. They have to pay the government $100,000, then they have to pay the employee. So it's just not economic. If you're going to train somebody, you're going to train one of the recent graduates from one of the great universities across our land. Train Americans, stop bringing in people to take our jobs. That's the policy here, $100,000 a year for H-1B visas, and all of the big companies are on board. We've spoken to them about the gold card.
They love it. They love it. They really love it. They need it.
Secretary Howard Lutnick really crafting this with business partners, public and private, in the government. TrumpCard.gov, you can find all the gold standards there. Also a platinum option for these H-1B visas if you are an employer. So merit-based immigration happening once again. So fantastic news. Promises made, promises kept. And allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN wants to protect you from cold and flu and COVID season with Tamiflu, antibiotics, antivirals, antibacterials, and hydrochloroquine to immune support, ivermectin, NAD+, methylene blue, and all of those 200-plus essential life-saving medications, emergency medical kits, things you can stock up in your medicine cabinet, because you know how it goes, especially with little kids. They might just have the cough, the sniffles, the big fever out of nowhere. They are vessels of disease when school gets back into session, which for most people has been roughly 1 month now to the last couple of weeks post-Labor Day. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, code RSBN10. It's 10% off now. Scan the QR code there, and you can take these life-saving medications with you on the road as well. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. If you did not catch it this week, you can play back via our social media site and rsbnetwork.com. The special that we had this Wednesday with Michael Kunzler and David McCary of the wonderful All Family Pharmacy, just detailing what can be used and protecting you with no red tape, no bureaucracy, simply patriots who want you to get life-saving medications that actually are affordable. Imagine that in this day and age. Well, President Trump en route to the Ryder Cup in Farmingdale, New York. He has his golf shoes on. That means he might do the Knute Rockne pep talk, as he mentioned to press just off of Air Force One moments ago. But Scotty Scheffler, the world's number one, cut number 13, Mr. Producer, is praising President Trump and really does appreciate his support in this endeavor to retain the cup.
To have the president here is, I think it's been a tough few weeks for our country with some of the stuff that's been going on, and to have our president here and for us to be able to represent the United States of America, albeit in a golf tournament, is extremely important to us, and we're excited to be here on home soil with a home crowd, and we're ready to get this tournament started. The president's kind of funny. He loves the game of golf. He loves supporting golfers, and I get a call or a text from him sometimes after wins, and he just loves the game of golf, and he's one of those guys when you're around him, he does such a good job of almost feeding confidence into everybody around him. That was one of the things I noticed a lot with the little bit of time I spent him is he treats everybody the same and treats people with the utmost respect, and whether you're the person serving us lunch or the caddy on the golf course or the guy who's the president of the club that we're at, he treats everybody like they're the greatest person in the world. And I don't think he has any plans to address us as a team, but I'm sure if things go well, we'll hear from him this week.
And great to hear from Scotty Scheffler, who had a big role in Happy Gilmore 2, if you caught that movie recently. In fact, many of the competitors on the U.S. and European sides all having cameos in what was a very funny sequel. And none other than, I believe, Shooter McGavin, played by Christopher McDonald. He is in attendance as well in what tends to be a star-studded event the Ryder Cup now in its 98th year. Its centennial celebration will be 2 years from now in 2027 in Adair, Ireland, at the Adair Manor, a small village on the southwest side. It's absolutely gorgeous. I had the privilege of attending the manor and playing there several years ago, and they said, we will get a Ryder Cup, and they promises made, promises kept, so we look forward to that celebration as well across the pond. But in the meantime, team needs to get caught up a bit, and we'll see if that happens in the coming minutes here as the fourth and final first session of foursomes coming to a relative conclusion soon, and we'll likely see President Trump on the other end of this. Well, it's fun because I have a friend who is attending the Ryder Cup, Tommy Roy, sending me in this video, Cut 17, Mr. Producer. If you have not been to a Ryder Cup, it's almost like going to a soccer match, and it's fun to heckle the other side in jest. And Rory McIlroy got some heat from the American team or the American viewership just moments ago.
You don't need a button to choke, Rory. Thank you. Yeah.
One of the things I love about professional golf is the fact that the spectators can get so close to the action, and you really realize just how God-given the talent is for these golfers in the midst of competition, and what they must think of us mere amateurs who simply love the game. But men, for some reason, this time of year have a couple of thoughts running through their head. First and foremost, that they could play golf better than any professional that's out there. I don't know how that happens. It even crosses my mind on a regular basis. To the fantasy football commissioners and being involved in that, it must be some primal sense or urge in the American male that they know how to do better in sports than the professionals that are out there. But I love the sense of competition, and something that President Trump helps bring to the American ethos. It's that reclaiming of a revival in this nation, not just of Christianity and our founding documents, but of true masculinity, true femininity, and coming together as fans of this great country and an extraordinary sport that has its roots in Scotland and the old country of simply taking a ball and a stick and hitting it as far down several yards that you can, and for some reason doing it 18 times. But it's a fun thing for us to celebrate right here today on this Friday, September 26th, as President Trump yesterday, in case you missed it, welcoming President Erdogan to the Oval Office after his speech at the United Nations General Assembly. We can play that back now.
President Trump, sir. President Trump, will you allow Turkey to buy F-35, sir? Do you believe Turkey can help end the war in Ukraine? Do you believe Turkey can help end the...
President Trump also had some harsh criticisms, and rightfully so, for the United Nations in Cut 12, because not only did the escalator not work, but then the teleprompter went dark for 15 minutes, and the First Lady told the president that she could not hear him in the hall. So the microphone was off unless they had the earpiece that's usually attached for the translations. So someone either egregiously doesn't know how to do their job, or there was some malevolence in President Trump's visit to the United Nations, a globalist body that has extreme feelings and communist, Islamist, and also secular humanist beliefs happening in that body. And we'll wait off for that video momentarily as President Trump is en route to the Ryder Cup, the 45th edition, again, in its 98th year. It's a biannual tradition unlike any other. And within the golf world, as we had the pleasure of having Ashley Brassfield on last hour from the Daily Caller, it's something that's really in our American ethos, especially if you're in the southern United States. So we'll take you there as soon as we can. In the meantime, again, President Trump calling out the United Nations, and thanks be to God for a president who believes in sovereignty, who believes in the MAGA doctrine, who believes that leaders of their countries should promote their citizens first and respect sovereignty and respect culture and respect identities that we can all share in values together, while still recognizing that those differences make us stronger. And we could celebrate those differences in many fantastic ways, but that borders actually matter and national identity is not a bad thing. So here's that playback from just the other day.
Not politically correct. I'll be very badly criticized for saying it, but I'm here to tell the truth. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. In 1982, the executive director of the United Nations Environmental Program predicted that by the year 2000, climate change would cause a global catastrophe. He said that it will be irreversible, as any nuclear holocaust would be. This is what they said at the United Nations. What happened? Here we are. Another UN official stated in 1989 that within a decade, entire nations could be wiped off the map by global warming. Not happening. You know, it used to be global cooling. If you look back years ago in the 1920s and the 1930s, they said, global cooling will kill the world. We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world, but then it started getting cooler, so now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss. It's climate change. Because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail.
Former Vice President Al Gore is crying like a child because we finally have a president who speaks truth to power, and that this climate hoax, the Green News scam, will destroy your nation. Who else would do that? Who else would have the brave nature to address a body like that? Speak truth to power. It's President Donald Trump. Thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN for your go-to 6-piece towel set. They're back in stock. They're normally $70, 70, now going for under $40. A very limited quantity, so get yours now. Call today. Don't delay. It's 800-836-7566, mypillow.com/RSBN. Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network at mypillow.com/RSBN. Over 2,000 products available with code RSBN. Thank you to Mike Lindell. He's the purveyor of free speech, defender of election integrity. Hey, he might be the next governor of Minnesota. Thank you to mypillow.com. If you'd like to donate to your go-to live desk, rsbnetwork.com/donate. You can text RSBN to 801-801. There's also a physical address for check and money order. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, the loveliest village on the plains. It's Auburn, Alabama, 36830, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Support us right here at rightsidebroadcastingnetwork.com/donate. Again, you can text RSBN to 801-801. Thank you dearly for all of that. As we take on a legacy media that doesn't always have American interests, well, we're on the correct side of history, and we want to showcase this to you. We don't cut anything. We don't edit speeches. We bring it right there to you. Question and answer to the biggest speeches in the world, to the largest hearings that might have an effect on your wallet and your way of life. We're covering the 45th and 47th President of the United States, your 50th Vice President, J.D. Vance, and the 119th Congress, all which you put into place peacefully and patriotically on November 5th of last year. Thank you for your support of Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're here for you as we're getting close to the top of the noon o'clock hour on the East Coast. So a soon-to-be good afternoon, America, but still a very good morning across the land of the free, the home of the brave. Let's take a quick commercial break here with Right Side Broadcasting Network as President Trump covers the Ryder Cup. And, oh my goodness, it's 3-1. Europe is up on us right now, but stay tuned for some more President Trump coverage at the Ryder Cup.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network live at noon o'clock Eastern. It's 9 o'clock on the West Coast. Welcome to the coverage of President Trump, his trip to the 45th Ryder Cup in Farmingdale, New York. It's the 98th edition, or the 98th year of this fine championship. And 2 years from now will be the 100th celebration in Adair, Ireland. So we look forward to that, but it's stateside at the moment. And after session one, it looks as if, breaking news here, that the Europeans are up on the United States 3-1. So Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay with a 2-up victory on 17 against Robert McIntyre and Robert Hovland. So they play in the foursomes. It's a version of a best ball game that takes place in a team format, but the Europeans handedly really taking it to the Americans early on in this competition that will take place over the course of the weekend. And as Scotty Scheffler mentioned, President Trump might be giving a pep talk to the American team. He has his golf shoes on. He left with his golf shoes from the White House, along with his lovely granddaughter, Kai Trump, who is on scholarship at Miami for golf herself. So should be a family affair with staff as well to enjoy what is a gorgeous day, not only in the federal city, but also in Farmingdale, New York, at Bethpage Black, the host of the 45th Ryder Cup. We have yet to play Cut 16, Ice, Wisconsin, taking care of business throughout the country as President Trump seeks to make America safe again.
The parking lot behind the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office filled with federal agents early Thursday morning in these pictures posted online by the FBI's Milwaukee office. Officials calling it a joint operation with U.S. Marshals, ICE agents, and the Drug Enforcement Association. 21 people arrested, who the FBI says are in the country illegally. Authorities say 9 are suspected of sexual assault and/or trafficking young girls.
And President Trump has arrived on the site of Bethpage Black and the 45th Ryder Cup. So we'll take you there when we have video playback of that. And the golf world loves President Trump. It's almost like the UFC fighters. He has a lot of fans within the ranks of those competitors. And President Trump being praised by the world's number one with Cut 13, Mr. Producer Scotty Scheffler talking about the difficulty of what's happened in America recently. So it will be great to have President Trump to give what might be a pep talk or support to the American team.
To have the president here is, I think it's been a tough few weeks for our country with some of the stuff that's been going on, and to have our president here and for us to be able to represent the United States of America, albeit in a golf tournament, is extremely important to us, and we're excited to be here on home soil with a home crowd, and we're ready to get this tournament started. The president's kind of funny. He loves the game of golf. He loves supporting golfers, and I get a call or a text from him sometimes after wins, and he just loves the game of golf, and he's one of those guys when you're around him, he does such a good job of almost like feeding confidence into everybody around him. That was one of the things I noticed a lot with the little bit of time I spent him is he treats everybody the same and treats people with the utmost respect, and whether you're the person serving us lunch or the caddy on the golf course or the guy who's the president of the club that we're at, he treats everybody like they're the greatest person in the world. And I don't think he has any plans to address us as a team, but I'm sure if things go well, we'll hear from him this week.
And we should have some live playback from the president at Bethpage moments from now. So stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as President Trump arrives at the Ryder Cup competition. Perhaps it might be a better afternoon of competition for the Americans as the Europeans in fourball, the foursome session 1, defeating the Americans right now, a score of 3-1, 3 matches won on the European side, but Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay coming from behind in a close competition with Robert McIntyre and also Victor Hovland. So that of Scotland and Norway. So it's if you're not familiar, it's a golf competition that is almost 100 years, a whole century in the making, starting in 1927, is played every 2 years, and it's between the United States and Europe. There is a couple of occasions where the match was actually postponed to the next year following terrible events. One was 9/11, September 11th of 2001. And this is usually where it's scheduled in late September or early October, which is really the best time to play golf. Best temperature is really the way golf is meant to be played. But then following into the 2002 year, and then going again every 2 years until COVID struck as well in 2020, and then they postponed that to 2021, which was then played at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin, an exquisite course right along Lake Michigan. You almost feel like you're in the old country when you go to play there. So President Trump arrives again at the Ryder Cup with Kai Trump, his granddaughter, who's on a golf scholarship at Miami, a great golfer in her own right. But perhaps no one who has occupied the Oval Office has been quite the scratch golfer that President Trump is. And we know that since Dwight D. Eisenhower and the post-World War II presidency, each one of the commanders-in-chief have had quite the time playing some great golf. In fact, the debate last year when the Autopen, before dropping out of the presidential election, claimed that he was a better golfer than President Trump and that he was a scratch golfer. And President Trump looked over at him and said, no, that's not true. So I enjoyed that moment from the debate. And you could see how this great game is such an integral part of American society. And we share with it in Western civilization, being born in the United Kingdom and Scotland specifically. and spreading throughout really the whole of Europe. There's not many Italian golfers, though. You see a few of them, but not as popular as it is in some of the neighboring countries. So we look forward to hearing what your thoughts are regarding your bets and trades this weekend, from college football to golf to baseball. Lots going on in the sports world, as there is lots happening within the political world and within the federal city. 2 indictments, 2 counts against the former FBI director, James Comey, Mr. Seashells himself, who called for the 86ing of 47, an egregious statement. But now it looks as if he will be facing justice. Of course, he's innocent, presumed innocent, before being found guilty by a jury of his peers or by a judge. We will see that prosecution taking place over the course of the next weeks and months. Also, Nick Fuentes and others being deplatformed, at least temporarily, from YouTube, as if it's rhyming from years past of what took place with President Trump being removed from Twitter and Facebook in 2021. So we see that Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes being removed from YouTube, at least temporarily. We'll see if they come back up with that. Also, Russian fighters intercepted off of Alaskan airspace and Alaskan waters. So we'll be watching those ongoing dogfights and Seward's Folly, which it was aptly called back in the 19th century. Really a smart thing to have Alaska, a beautiful part of the country, not only to hold peace summits, but also for oil and for trade, global trade, in fact, especially with our airlines, but also for Pacific Fleet and Western defense of this great nation. But President Trump working overtime per usual this week as he was at the UN General Assembly giving a sovereignty speech, a MAGA 2.0 from his speech back in 2019, which really laid out the Trump doctrine. And following that, Charlie Kirk, our late, great, dear friend here at the network, writing the MAGA doctrine, which really detailed the peace through strength mission of this administration, especially in the second term, roughly 250 days in office. There was also something very special to have happened right off of the West Wing during this week. You might have missed it, but Deputy White House Chief of Staff, longtime friend, he's almost like a son to President Trump, and initially was his caddy of all things. That's where the relationship began. Dan Scavino getting engaged to the lovely Erin Elmore, 2 wonderful people, friends of this entire movement. And Dan, just a wonderful guy, I have to say. We had to interact on a couple of occasions, and it was a true pleasure during my days at True Social. Well, they're engaged now, and man, Dan, you got it down. I don't know if any other guy in the history of time can top you doing an engagement right off of the West Wing. But here's video directly from President Trump. Congratulations to the future Mr. and Mrs. Dan Scavino. Best wishes and many happy and healthy years. 2 people who have fought hard in this MAGA movement to help make America great again. Someone who's been by the side of President Trump for countless years. Really a wonderful couple. So congratulations. A beautiful way to get engaged and celebrate marriage, and something that I think we're all reflecting on since the passing of Charlie Kirk and his fight for families, his fight for traditional values, to get married and have kids. It's what the legacy is all about. And we see that today as President Trump, accompanied by his granddaughter, a great golfer in her own right, Kai Trump. And it looks like she has her own brand of clothing now with the KT going on. So that's pretty cool to see that in action as President Trump is in Bethpage black. It is a very difficult golf course. In fact, it has a warning label on it that says specifically, if you're really not a good golfer, you might want to go somewhere else, because this is for highly skilled golfers, this one course, and a public course on Long Island. So a few miles east of New York City, right outside of Farmingdale, New York, a lovely small community of roughly 12,000 people. And we should be getting playback relatively soon of President Trump at the Ryder Cup. He has his golf shoes on. He's ready to give the Newt Rockne pep talk, as he mentioned to press, right off of Air Force One. So we'll ideally see that in the coming minutes here as you've joined us on Right Side Broadcasting on a beautiful Friday. And we hope that it is as gorgeous in your neck of the woods as it is in the Federal City and in Farmingdale, New York, and right down here in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama. So we look forward to bringing you that unbridled access to the Commander-in-Chief at the Ryder Cup in moments. Let's take a quick commercial break for sponsors, and we'll be right back with you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Our friends on the other side of the aisle are even being called out by legacy media items as Democrats press on with the shutdown threats. Even the media is not buying their obstruction, as it's 12:15 on the East Coast, 9:15 in the morning on the West Coast. I'm Robert McNeely as we cover President Trump arriving at the Ryder Cup. Stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Democrats threatening to hold government funding hostage to score political points, including the wanting to get rid of the clean CR. They don't want to have it, although House Speaker Mike Johnson pushing for that. Democrats simply ignoring the real-world consequences, barreling our country towards a government shutdown if Republicans don't adhere to their roughly $1.5 trillion wish list. Now, the American people want to keep their government open, and even the media is not buying Democrats' political posturing. Politico reporting. The tables turn for Democrats as they use shutdown for leverage. It's Republicans who are pushing for the clean 7-week continuing resolution, which they say will buy time for more negotiations on full-year spending bills and possibly an extension on expiring health insurance subsidies. Democrats, meanwhile, wrote an alternative 4-week punt that tacks on a laundry list of other demands, including a permanent extension of the insurance subsidies. Bloomberg reporting that U.S. lurches toward a shutdown as Senate Democrats block the GOP stoppage. Senate Democrats are to blame as Congress heads toward a government shutdown, according to Bloomberg reports, and that they stated Democrats unable to slow Trump's agenda or even garner much media attention for their efforts, and under increasing pressure to risk a shutdown. Schumer in March backed off from a very similar threat and allowed 10 Democrats to vote for a temporary spending bill. And he is taking a tougher line this time, even as some of the same 10 senators refuse to say how they will vote in the end. And really, let's be honest, this might be the last year of so-called service for the Palestinian senator from New York, as AOC looks geared and ready to go to challenge him in a primary. Chucky Schumer, he's been really, I think, detrimental to Senate Democrat leadership. Now, the New York Times, of all outlets, Democrats block GOP spending extension as the shutdown looms. The New York Times reports Democrats are to blame for blocking the GOP bill to fund the government through November. Now, Senate Democrats on Friday blocked Republicans' plans to keep federal funding flowing past a September 30th deadline, demanding concessions on health care and other issues in exchange for their support for a measure needed to avert a government shutdown. The Washington Examiner doubling down. Democrats risk shutdown blame game with government funding hardball. The Washington Examiner reports that Democrats are risking a shutdown in pursuit of their Democrat wish list of other policies that are non-starters for the GOP. And a lot of this has to do with Social Security funding and healthcare subsidies, Medicare and Medicaid, going to illegal aliens, which then adds to the national debt, which then waters down what you have put into the system as people are getting free healthcare. And that's not some right-wing talking points actually happening because of the Democrat Party. Now, the Republican plan was passed by the House last week, but failed to clear a 60-vote filibuster in the United States Senate. It includes largely extending current funding levels through November 21st to allow appropriators more time to finish a bipartisan annual budget. Now, a Democrat counterproposal would provide funding through October and extend the Obamacare insurance credits, along with a Democrat wish list of other policies that are non-starters for the GOP. The Hill stating that Democrats say the shutdown is necessary to send a message to Trump, quote unquote. The Hill reports that Democrats say a shutdown is necessary to send a message to President Trump. Democrat senators say that unless Republicans scrap their plan to advance a clean 7-week continuing resolution, they don't see any option other than defeating it as a way to send a message to President Trump. And what's crazy about this is that the Palestinian senator from New York, Chuck Schumer, or Pocahontas, otherwise known as Elizabeth Warren from New Hampshire, claimed that doing a shutdown back in 2012, 2013, during Barack Hussein Obama's rule over our great nation, that would be immoral to do and wrong for the nation. It's amazing the double standard when your fellow comrade is not in office. Now, CNN, it's a new world with Trump. Inside the Democrats' shutdown gamble. This is CNN, mind you. Democrats are going to battle over the government shutdown for a fight with Trump, as CNN reports. Still locked out of power in Washington, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and his party are seizing on a fresh battle with President Trump, a high-stakes gamble over this month's government funding deadline. Party leaders and rank and file are publicly projecting a united front, and many Democrats are truly eager for a fight with the president. Now, behind the scenes, some are also worried about the party's exit strategy if Trump and the GOP refuse to cave. They fear that a shutdown could wreak havoc across the country, only for Democrats to ultimately yield to Republicans with nothing to exchange. And as Politico has said, Democrats are barreling towards a shutdown with no clear plan to get out, only obstruction. So what is their plan? Do they have a platform? I mean, it's really been remarkable to watch the other major party not bring anything to the table. I mean, they're for men and women's sports. They want illegal criminals to run rampant throughout this country. They like to have margaritas with those who are accused of child abuse and rape and murder. These people are so bizarre, and it's not the voters at home. It's the elected officials in Washington, D.C. I think it's very clear now that it's the neocons and the neoliberals in both parties that put this country on a path towards destruction, dating back to 1999, when then the auto-pen senator from Delaware was having a lovely cheers of champagne with then Vice Premier Xi Jinping of the Chinese Communist Party, and then President Bill Clinton to welcome China into the World Trade Organization, saying it would be good for the United States. An open China would somehow bring us prosperity and cheaper goods. Well, it brought cheaper goods. It also brought the poisons of fentanyl and young lives here in America being destroyed and families without the most wonderful possession in their lives, their children, at the dinner table, because those chemicals got in through the southern border, all trafficked through Chinese networks. This is a regime that released COVID and coronavirus on the entire world through gain-of-function research that came from Dr. Fear, Anthony Fauci. And these are the kind of people that Democrats want to prop up. It's amazing to watch. As President Trump has arrived at the Ryder Cup, we are waiting for coverage of him to perhaps give the U.S. team a pep talk after a brutal morning. Session 1, the foursomes, 3-1 is the score. Europe is up on the United States as we expect afternoon tea times to get underway in roughly 120 seconds. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, your go-to for fall flu season, COVID and cold prep. It's Tamiflu, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, NAD+, methylene blue, also biohacking products and weight loss strategies to help you through this flu season. Scan that QR code now. It's code RSBN10. That's RSBN10 for 10% off. Prepare your medicine cabinet before flu season hits hard with antivirals and antibiotics, and also 200 essential medicines and emergency medical kits that you can take on the road with you. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. It truly is your go-to. There's also Monetary Wealth. It is the gold preservation, monetary gold wealth security preservation that will make the day, save your hard-earned savings, also pensions, retirement, whatever you've planned for. You've worked hard for it, so why not keep it? Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide today. Call today, don't delay. Ask how to eliminate your annual IRA fees for life. It's 888-617-7994, 888-617-7994. RSBNforthegold.com, RSBNforthegold.com. I'm passionate about this group. So is Robert Kiyosaki, a friend of President Trump's, who warned us that this year 2 banks have failed in 2025. And with $37 trillion of debt, how can paper money and investments plus inflation make sure that your savings remain in place? You have to diversify. Gold and silver have stood the test of time in over 5,000 years of human history. Again, RSBNforthegold.com. Your presidential gold guide, complimentary, awaits you today. 888-617-7994. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history as we await President Trump to make an appearance at the Ryder Cup. Something that will be extraordinary to see, as he is a big golf fan himself and the team loves him. So it will be good to give some moral support as they are currently down 3-1. Let's take a quick commercial break for sponsorships. Stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
And we know that world number one, Scotty Scheffler, is excited to see President Trump exchanging calls and texts on a regular basis as Air Force One took a quick flyover of the Ryder Cup located at Bethpage Black in Farmingdale, New York. Exciting to see that. We'll cut to number 13 again, Mr. Producer, and showcase the world number one, Scotty Scheffler, talking about the greatness of having President Trump there at the Ryder Cup.
To have the president here is, I think it's been a tough few weeks for our country with some of the stuff that's been going on, and to have our president here and for us to be able to represent the United States of America, albeit in a golf tournament, is extremely important to us, and we're excited to be here on home soil with a home crowd, and we're ready to get this tournament started. The president's kind of funny. He loves the game of golf. He loves supporting golfers, and I get a call or a text from him sometimes after wins, and he just loves the game of golf, and he's one of those guys when you're around him, he does such a good job of almost feeding confidence into everybody around him. That was one of the things I noticed a lot with the little bit of time I spent him is he treats everybody the same and treats people with the utmost respect, and whether you're the person serving us lunch or the caddy on the golf course or the guy who's the president of the club that we're at, he treats everybody like they're the greatest person in the world. And I don't think he has any plans to address us as a team, but I'm sure if things go well, we'll hear from him this week.
And the Ryder Cup is a lot of fun. If you have not been to it, I highly recommend it, even if you're not a golf fan, which how could you not be in this day and age? But it's almost as if you're mixing golf with soccer and a little bit of boxing to the UFC to even NASCAR, because the fans actually kind of heckle the teams and they kind of give it back. And there's a great example of a friend of mine who is attending Tommy Roy over on Long Island, and he sent me this video earlier today, cut number 17, Mr. Director. Rory McIlroy really has to make sure he doesn't choke.
You don't need a button to choke, Rory. Thank you. Yeah.
So a fun moment this morning as Rory McIlroy speaking glowingly in the press conference rounds of the Ryder Cup days leading up to what's very ceremonial, both squads coming together. We know Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, was booed by the fans, and rightfully so, because she's run the Empire State into the ground. So that was quite a sight to see. But also Rory speaking on the fact that he had the opportunity to come to America years ago to pursue his dream from Northern Ireland, and now makes his home in the free sunshine state of Florida. And he said it's quite simple with his Team Europe logos on, that America is the greatest country in the world, and the affinity and the love he has for his adopted home. And that's really a special thing to reflect upon, that if you work hard and you go after it and you have passion for what you do, there's no limit. There really isn't. You might have a physical or even mental or sometimes some other limitation, but more often than not, if you put your mind to it, if you work hard, if you're good to people, it's amazing what you can achieve in the United States of America. When I go back to my Irish ancestors, I think a lot about the fact that they would probably be tickled pink to see one of theirs getting to talk on American politics on a daily basis behind a microphone. It's a true blessing. and this country has plenty of them still in 2025. It is the place to live, work, and raise a family, and ultimately to keep strong so that the rest of the world can have hope and peace, especially with a strong president like Donald Trump, who showcased that this week at the United Nations with a speech focused on sovereignty against globalism, free enterprise against fascism, and freedom of speech and religious liberty against what the communists want to take away, or the Islamists who want to invoke Sharia law into their lands as the law of the land in a theocratic manner that will not allow anyone else to worship freely. President Trump stood up to that. He also called for the end of biological warfare and for the stopping of making those weapons. He called on the international community to make sure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. And he took care of that to end the 12 days war between Israel and Iran earlier this summer with coordinated strikes by B-2 bombers and Tomahawks to follow on those 3 sites in Tehran. A brave moment for sure. Also warning the Venezuelan government that if you traffic fentanyl and poison and drugs into this country via boat, you will be shot down. You will be spotted by Coast Guard, by Homeland Security, and by joint task forces, as these teams and these units of governments and these different departments are working better and more closely together than ever before, whether it be the DOJ to DHS, to Health and Human Services, to the Border Patrol. And as you saw in that video from Milwaukee in the ICE raids, the U.S. Marshal joining the FBI as well in coordinated efforts to clean up the streets and get crime out of our major cities. Because two things in America have to happen for young people especially. No one should have a different education nor safety concerns based on the zip code that they remain in. And as we close out today's broadcast, President Trump in his seat at the Ryder Cup, enjoying what hopefully is a better afternoon of matches for the United States. We'll run this one more time to go into your weekend. Maybe we'll put a tear in your eye. 2 wonderful people, Dan Scavino, Aaron Elmore, getting engaged in perhaps the most romantic spot right off of the West Wing. And thanks, Dan. You made it look bad for the rest of us guys out there who are hoping to pop the question one of these days. But congratulations and best wishes to Deputy White House Chief of Staff Dan Scavino and his lovely lady Erin Elmore, 2 people who have fought so hard for the MAGA movement, coming together in holy matrimony. Congratulations and best wishes to the future Mr. and Mrs. Dan Scavino. President Trump is at the Ryder Cup. He's taking it in with Kai Trump, with family, friends, and staff at the 45th edition of this fair championship, now in its 98th year. If there's any breaking news, we'll be right here for you at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Stick with us as we bid you adieu. Have a wonderful weekend. Get the college football games in, hug your family, and do something for your community. What can you do this weekend over the next 72 hours to make your neck of the woods better? And feel free to write in if you wish to opine. Feedback at rsbn.tv. I'm Robert McNeely. It's always a joy to be with you at the live desk for all of my colleagues here on the right side of history. Good afternoon, and still a good morning on the West Coast. God bless you. We'll see you soon.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queens $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.